This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Internet world, West Alabama. How we doing today on Football Friday? I'm Joe Gaither. You're watching The Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. We're going to have a lot of fun breaking down this weekend's game, Alabama and South Carolina. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it with our friend Hunter De Siver. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at Hunter De Siver, helping us break down the Alabama Crimson Tide for BamaCentral.com. We've had a lot of fun already this week, Hunter. You guys can watch all of our content inside the Malmore facility on the Bama Central YouTube channel, or you can listen to all the episodes, The Joe Gaither Show, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on Amazon. We appreciate you doing that. Hunter, how's your week been going? Have you survived our trip to Nashville? Have you finally digested the Alabama loss? How are we doing, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough to digest that loss. I mean, it's going to take over 40 years to do it. But yeah, I'm excited for this upcoming game for sure. I've put it, like the rest of the team, I think I've pretty much put the Vanderbilt loss behind me and ready for the Gamecocks.
All right, so we're hanging out with Hunter De Siver. We're both going to be in Bryant-Denny Stadium tomorrow morning for Alabama's 11 a.m. kickoff against the South Carolina Gamecocks. So we're going to basically dance around the game with Hunter. We're going to pick some other college games, and we'll see how much fun we can have on a Football Friday. But before we get into Football Friday, we should tell you about our friends at Purple Turtle Roofing. You can find them. They're the most reliable residential roofing replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. Call Dustin Foley and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, or visit them online at roofturtle.com. All right, Hunter, so you got to move forward, and you said you have done that. What do you think about this team? Can this team move forward? The Alabama Crimson Tide losing 40-35 last week. You fall to 1-1 in the SEC. You're tied for, I think it was 6th or 7th in the league right now, with everybody sitting at 1-1. And you got a couple teams undefeated: Texas A&M, Texas, and LSU. What do you think about this team moving on? Do you expect a good performance in Bryant-Denny Stadium tomorrow, or will it be more the same painful defense tomorrow morning?
No, I definitely could see the defense really turning it around. I'm sure that was a big emphasis in practice this week. I mean, it didn't really seem like offense was an issue against Vanderbilt. It's more on the other side of the ball, as Vanderbilt had 40 minutes time of possession, which Alabama really has never had before, like on the defensive side. This was really mainly due to these 5-yard gains, 6-yard gains every single play. And that was with a scrambling quarterback. And we're about to see the kind of a similar thing in South Carolina, but hopefully they're more prepared for this one.
Exactly. So we're going to see Lenora Sellers tomorrow, or probably Robbie Ashford. Lenora Sellers has done a lot of the starting for South Carolina, and then Robbie Ashford has come in when Sellers has gotten banged up. So we saw Pavia really get after Alabama last week on the ground. How do you think that really the Alabama defense is going to respond? Because the spotlight's on the defense. The offense still put up 35 points, had a pretty good day outside of 2 really, really bad turnovers. Do you expect the defense to respond, or is this just a problem that Alabama is just going to have to contend with? You saw Joel Klatt recently this week say that Alabama is like an old Big 12 team, is going to have to be living in shootouts the rest of the year. Do you agree with him, or is the defense going to shut down Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders tomorrow?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, going into the second half of the Georgia game, starting from week 1 versus Western Kentucky all the way to the second half of the Georgia game, or like the end of the first half of the Georgia game, Alabama's defense was pretty stout. All 3 levels, I think, have done an excellent job during that span. But the last 6 quarters obviously hasn't been the case. We've seen that against the quarterback run. That's kind of been their main weakness. Against Diego Pavia, against Byron Brown, even Carson Beck, like late in the fourth quarter, got him a few times. So it really comes down to stopping that. And if they do that, I think everything else will be good to go.
What's your confidence level in doing that? What's your confidence level in Deontay Lawson and Jihad Campbell imposing their will instead of really kind of trying to chase and tackle, chase and rally?
Yeah, I mean, Jihad and Deontay have been off to a really good start this season from what I've seen. They're I think they're top two on the team in tackles, and they're very consistent overall. Obviously, last game wasn't like superb by either of them, as Diego kind of just found his way to extend drives and kind of get in between them or around them or etc. But I think that they'll definitely get back on their feet for sure against South Carolina.
All right, Hunter. So earlier this week, Paul Feinbaum says that this loss is worse for Alabama because it's not just 0-1. It's a loss to Vanderbilt. And he says it's the worse for the Crimson Tide because now the mystique is gone. The Alabama A is not intimidating people anymore. Do you agree with Paul Feinbaum that the mystique is gone?
Obviously, the retirement of Nick Saban has definitely impacted the way people feel about Alabama. For the first 4 games, though, everyone thought like, "Oh man, Alabama's just as good as they were without Saban." Especially after beating Georgia, obviously it was 28-0. Georgia came all the way back, but they still won, and Alabama became the number 1 ranked team in the country. But this one loss, obviously, people are. I mean, with every Alabama loss that has really ever happened in the last 17 years, it's pretty blown out of proportion by the media and Alabama fans, college football fans in general. So I don't think this one loss has made that big of an impact, even though it was against a team that hadn't beat Alabama since Kalen DeBoer was 10 years old.
Okay, so with that and on that track, I have watched South Carolina this week, and I think this team can't stand up to Alabama talent-wise. Oh my gosh, this team, should be an easy win. But I have cautioned myself all week long because of what happened last week. I have lost my faith that Alabama has the killer instinct. Was it just an off day on Saturday, or am I right to be maybe have a little trepidation in picking Alabama to win big?
I mean, I definitely see it as both. I mean, you could definitely see it was an off day. I mean, throughout all of last week, they were talking about how it's like going to be a trap game, and they had like these little rat traps around the athletic facility. And clearly that was the case. But do I think that they would repeat themselves in messing this up twice? I don't think so. Like I do think Alabama will, I want to say like handily beat South Carolina, but I think they can get this one in the bag.
All right, so we're just hanging out with Hunter De Siver. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at Hunter De Siver, covering all things Crimson Tide for us right here at Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. And Alabama's really been focused on responding to the loss. As you go through this week, you were there with Malachi Moore in the Moore Athletic Facility. What have you made of his response? What have you made of his response? And secondarily, his comments about the defense not getting the defensive calls, not coming in a timely fashion, creating anxiety for the defenders. Will we see the defense signaled in quicker this week?
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, he literally after the game on Saturday, Coach DeBoer said oh, he's already apologized to the team and yada yada yada. And then on Monday, Coach DeBoer reiterates that, but also says he means so much to this team and he's like a rock for them and he's a 2-time captain for a reason. And he also spoke to Diego Pavia, who obviously Vanderbilt's QB that we've already mentioned, where he kind of slammed his head in the turf while he was already kind of down after the whistle. And there's that whole meltdown a bit, but it seems like I wouldn't necessarily say it's for 100% forgiven. It's being handled internally, the punishment. That's what DeBoer said on Monday. So we don't know exactly what that's going to be like, but on Tuesday, he spoke. No. Yeah. Then Malachi spoke on Tuesday about it, basically reiterating all the same things we already knew, but he was very open about it, spoke very well. However, after all these nice things, or not necessarily nice things, but after all these things that he said about apologizing, he then talks about the Kane. He didn't say Kane Womack, obviously, but he did mention that whole non-quick play calling thing. So was it a call out to Kane? I don't know what it could have been. Like, I don't know how many others necessarily feel this way. I mean, obviously, as a captain, you kind of speak for the whole team. And for all we know, that there could have been these players only meetings that they were like, oh, yeah, like, definitely we need to get these plays out sooner and not cause some anxiety. And I don't really know, like, how to go about it for South Carolina, really. Like, I expect the play calls to be quicker. I'm assuming Kane Womack saw this in some capacity.
Yeah,
And
dude.
yeah, I mean,
Well, and he said that they addressed it. He said that the team, kind of addressed it with Coach Womack.
okay. So then, yeah, like I think it'll be fine I think it'll be fine on Saturday. Like, I think the calls will be much quicker. And that's really a main part of it in stopping these quarterback runs.
Diego Pavia, let's go back to him real quick. He has spent this entire week on the media tour, Hunter, on this guy's podcast and on that guy's podcast, and really all over the place. He's hit up my agent for NIL opportunities, and I hope that he gets all the NIL in the world. Absolutely, you deserve it, kid. But Vanderbilt still has a season and still has a game this week as Kentucky. We're not going to pick it on our sheet later because who cares about Vanderbilt and Kentucky? But I would ask you, do you think that Diego Pavia is dialed into the Wildcats this week, or is he maybe riding the wave a little too much this week, doing the media tour saying, rah, 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 we beat Alabama, look at me?
No, I mean, it seems like he seems to be very media trained. I mean, on the Sports Center segment where he spoke to Johnny Manziel, like, you could see that he's definitely dialed in, and like, he's not fully gloating about this win. And that was really just kind of a Sunday, Monday kind of thing. But I think he's really moved on. And I think it's kind of lit a fire under him for the rest of the season. I'm not saying necessarily like watch out Vanderbilt, like for all we know that they could win the rest of their season. I mean, I doubt it, but they just beat Alabama. So really anything could happen for them.
Well, yeah, he was talking about, we got to win out the rest of the way if we're going to be a national champion. So we'll see, Diego Pavia. He said this next game, the Kentucky game, is our most important game. I think that they're going bowling. I look at their schedule. They got 3 wins. They can beat Ball State for win number 4. Can they get 5 and 6 over Auburn and South Carolina, over Auburn and South Carolina, over Auburn and LSU, Auburn and Tennessee? Somebody, they can get that 6th win, Auburn and Kentucky. They can get themselves to bowl eligibility, and that would be a lot of fun for Vanderbilt, I think.
Yeah.
So this week, Alabama's got a huge task with the South Carolina Gamecocks, 22-point favorite in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'm really hesitant about that number, Hunter, because South Carolina has a really big, really bad, really mean defensive line. Is this defensive line better than the Georgia Bulldogs?
That's tough to say. I mean, the guy that I always kind of look at is Dylan Stewart, the freshman edge rusher. I think he's phenomenal. He's one of the best edge rushers, I think, not necessarily in the country just yet, potentially going to be in the SEC, but I'd say in like a year or 2 from now, he's going to be a top 10 pick if I had to guess. He's really on a good track. So he's someone definitely to be afraid of, but Georgia's D-line, it's just a whole different like breed. Like, this is a Kirby Smart coached team, a Kirby Smart coached defense. I don't think in the last decade that there's been a better like defensive coach than Kirby Smart, which is what makes me automatically pick Georgia's defensive line in this case.
Ooh, I think South Carolina's as a whole may be better than Georgia's, but Alabama held Georgia to no sacks. 3 weeks ago, two weeks ago, right there in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Yeah. How do you expect? Because you got Kyle Kennard as well on the other side, transfer from Georgia Tech, who's 4 or 5 sacks on the season, with Tonka Hemingway on the inside, big old defensive tackle. How do you expect the Alabama offensive line to perform this week?
Yeah, I mean, last season Alabama's offensive line was really towards the bottom of college football, and they make like a couple changes, not too many, but then going into the season, everyone was like, oh yeah, this Alabama offensive line is for real. And I was on board for sure. And then week 1, it's a little choppy, not amazing. Week 2 was kind of a disaster against South Florida with all the holding calls and sacks and Jalen Milroe getting constantly pressured. But then really since then, they've been very solid overall. I don't know how many sacks they've allowed since, but it can't be more than like 4 or
2
5.
against Vanderbilt. 2 against Vanderbilt. It's been 4 in the last 3 games.
There you go. Yeah, I was like, there's no way it could be more than 5. So like that's excellent stuff. I think Tyler Booker and Parker Brailsford, they seem to be like kind of like the clear leaders on this offensive line. They have both complimented each other from interviews that we've had with them over the last couple weeks. I think I don't know what Jaden Roberts. I think he'll be all right for South Carolina.
Yeah, apparently he's been dealing with some injuries. They weren't really they didn't really specify. Chris Kapilovic on Wednesday saying he's been dealing with some lingering issues, and I guess that's why you brought Gino Vandermark in this past week. We'll see how.
Yeah, I mean, because he wasn't on the injury report. Yeah, he wasn't on the injury report, so I'm assuming that'll be good to go. Obviously, the right tackle spot is kind of up and up.
That's my biggest question, Hunter. Your boy Dylan Stewart versus Elijah Pritchett, because I think that's what it's going to end up being. Because you got Kennard. I think Kennard is going to end up on the left side, more veteran, experienced guy. I think he's going to be coming after Caden Proctor, and I'm pretty confident in Caden Proctor to at least have it be a wash, right? You're going to win some, going to lose some, probably going to win more than you lose. But Kennard's a good player. But I'm concerned about your boy Dylan. In the middle, you just nailed it. They're going to handle Tonka Hemingway. They're going to be able to – the 3 of them are going to be able to handle it. Dylan Stewart on Elijah Pritchett. How are we feeling about that? Because that can wreck the whole offense right there.
That could be the matchup of the morning. I guess you could say it's not even afternoon. But, yeah, that's going to be tough. I mean – Pritchett hasn't really been that bad. I mean, especially against Georgia and at the end against South Florida, I think he did a very nice job. And those are, I mean, based on what we saw, South Florida's edge rushers are pretty good, and he seemed to handle it pretty well. And obviously Georgia, as I've already said, is one of the best defensive fronts in the country and has been for a long time. So against this freshman, who knows? I mean, we've seen some freshmen ball out recently on our team. So it's definitely possible that South Carolina could do the same. But I hope that Elijah Pritchett could definitely handle Dylan Stewart for most of the time being.
All right, so yesterday, and we'll get into yours in just a minute, but yesterday I picked 3 players to watch. I picked Jam Miller, I picked Elijah Pritchett, and I picked Malachi Moore. I picked Jam Miller because South Carolina has allowed, 130, 140, and 137, or something like that, rushing yards collectively as a team to LSU, Kentucky, and Ole Miss. They're 3 SEC opponents. And I picked Malachi Moore just because I think he's going to be really fired up for the game and kind of trying to erase the memories of this past Saturday. And then I ended up picking Elijah Pritchett because of just what we just talked about with Dylan Stewart. So those are one of my 3 players. I'm about to tell everybody about Derek Daniel at State Farm, and we're going to get Hunter's 3 players on the other side. So with that, we want to thank Derek Daniel for sponsoring the program. You need an insurance agent. You need a local insurance agent. Call Derek Daniel State Farm in Northport. You can call him today at 205-758-3391. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel and his team, Red, Reese, and Victoria, are there. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. All right, Hunter, what do you think here? We've done the 3 players to watch, and I thought I was going to have such a good day. CJ Dupree rips down the middle of the field last week against Vanderbilt, and I'm like, okay, we're in business here. And I ended up picking Quay Russaw. It should have been Quandarius Robinson. I picked Jihad Campbell. He made a lot of tackles, but also got kind of drugged down the field. So I chalked myself up 0 for 3 last week. Hopefully I'll do better this week with Jam, Elijah, and Malachi. What do you think? Who do you think are 3 players, for whatever reason, that Alabama fans should be watching or might have a special impact on Saturday?
Yeah, I think as a whole unit, I definitely go with the linebackers here. I mean, I'll go with Q Robinson just because he's occasionally on the outside. Quay Russaw too in that wolf position area. Going against a running quarterback, which I feel like I've said 1,000 times on the show already in the 20 minutes that we've been doing this. That's really the main thing here. I was talking with the defensive backs coach on Wednesday, And he said kind of like a big reason why Vanderbilt won is because they were able to extend these plays. Instead of it being like a 2-second snap, it's like 3 seconds. And that extra second where the quarterback could scramble around for a little bit and find a lane to either run or throw, that kind of made the difference overall. And so that's kind of where these linebackers have to come in and go attack Lenora Sellers. And so I definitely go with Q Robinson or really anyone in the linebacker unit, Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson. But I guess if I were to go for a skill player on offense, Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice are both listed as questionable. We know what Ryan Williams could do. I feel like all eyes are on him for watching anyways, so I'll go past him, but I'll go with the next receiver. I'm going to go with Jeremy Bernard here. I think him and Ryan have really stood out so far this season on Alabama's offense. And now that Law and Prentice, now that they're kind of up in the air as to what's going to happen with them for this week, I think it's time for both of them really to not necessarily step up because they're already dominating, but I think they need to go a little extra mile just in case one or two of them aren't playing between Prentice and Law. So I would say Jeremy Bernard's my main guy there. So right now, the two guys that I mainly mentioned, Q Robinson, Jeremy Bernard, and I guess this is kind of tough. Another thing that Mo Linguist said, defensive backs coach, was that so they got this dynamic quarterback and tremendous athletes on the outside specifically, receivers. So you got a guy like Nick Harbor out there who has all the talent in the world. And Mo Linguist said this, that like they don't really have like the numbers yet, these stats, but trust me, like these guys are freakishly
They're good, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you think of these outside receivers, you got to go with the cornerbacks. So someone like Xavier Brown or Domani Jackson. Jalen Mbakwe didn't really play. I don't think he played at all against Vanderbilt, really. And hopefully he'll be out, or hopefully he'll be out there for Saturday. So position groups, wide receivers, linebackers, corners, individual players. Let's go with Jeremy Bernard, Q Robinson, and take your pick. Let's go with Xavier Brown. Yeah.
I like it. All right, so let's talk a little bit off the field, Hunter. We've been hanging out all week long in the Malamore Athletic Facility getting ready for this week's game. And we've hung out really for the last 6, 8, 10 weeks or so since fall camp has been there. This has been the first week that Alabama has lost. And you're seeing lots of people online. Why doesn't Kalen DeBoer care? Why isn't he mad? Why isn't he fired up? Why isn't he burning the building down? Why isn't he chewing out the reporters? What in the world? You got a lot of people complaining about Kalen DeBoer's response. And lots of people complaining about his wardrobe as well. So I just want to open both avenues up to you, because I have talked about the wardrobe 2 different times, so the people don't need to hear me repeat that spiel again. I haven't really talked about the demeanor as much, but before I poison you or contaminate your answer, I'll just ask you, what do you think about Kalen DeBoer's response? And if you want to chime in on the close, you're more than welcome to.
I'll make this as simple as I can. A couple months ago, Kalen, I think it was during SEC Media Days football, Kalen DeBoer was asked about kind of his win-loss record all time. And at the time, I think it was 109 wins and 12 losses. He's got 3 national championships from Sioux Falls in the NAIA national championships. He took Washington, who wasn't necessarily this big school, to the national championship last year. He had so many players get drafted to the NFL last season, including Michael Penix Jr. and Roma Dunze. And anyways, this was his 13th loss of his career. And he's been coaching for many more years than 13. So it's as simple as that. The fact that he barely loses, he doesn't need to have this crazy demeanor when he does. There's just no need for it. And the clothes thing, come on, that's just ridiculous. Like every coach, just because Saban wore like a polo doesn't mean that Coach DeBoer has to. Like it's as simple as that. He can wear whatever he wants. Like it makes no difference in how he coaches and how the team plays. It's simple as that.
But Hunter, if he was wearing a tie, he'd take it more serious.
Yeah. No chance.
But if you wore a three-piece suit, then he'd take it extra serious. Look, would the Alabama fans have been happy losing to Vanderbilt if Coach DeBoer was wearing a tuxedo on the sidelines? No. It doesn't, like, it's just the results are what matters. And that's really what I've been hammering all week on that topic.
Yeah.
Oh man, Hunter. All right. So we're kind of at the end of my kind of South Carolina experience. Do you have any thoughts or anything keys to the game that you think or aspects of the game that we've left on the table about tomorrow's matchup between Alabama and South Carolina?
I mean, we've pretty much covered it all. Offense really isn't the main issue for Alabama. It was really on the defensive end last game. Overall, I've liked how the defense has played, except for the last 6 quarters, obviously. So when it comes to defense, stopping the QB run is a big deal. Going against these tremendously athletic receivers is a big deal. And I guess just on the offensive side, being kind of that right tackle area with Elijah Pritchett going against Dylan Stewart. If he gets that job done, I think Alabama's offense is golden. I mean, even if he doesn't play extremely well, I think the rest of the front 4 will get the job done easily. But I have a lot of faith in Elijah Pritchett for sure.
I do as well. So we'll see how that works out tomorrow. Hunter, I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, well, including the Alabama South Carolina game. Are you? I know a lot of the fans are not happy or not for the 11 a.m. games, but I think that this is going to work out in yours and my favor this week.
Yeah, it's totally fine. I mean, for those who don't know, we have to be at the press box 3 hours before the game, and we're probably working 3 hours after the game. So that means we are done at like 4 o'clock.
That'll be great. It'll be perfect.
And like night games are obviously super cool, but there's a lot of times where we're not done till 2 a.m. So I'm totally fine with what we got to do tomorrow.
I am too, and especially when you look at the schedule that we have tomorrow. So let's tell everybody about Purple Turtle Roofing one more time, and then we will make our picks for this big weekend in college football. They're the most reliable residential roof replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Purple Turtle Roofing. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. They're the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Call Dustin Foley and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635. You can schedule your appointment, and one of their qualified employees will come check out your roof for free and make sure you're prepared for any and all of life's storms. Check them out online today at roofturtle.com. All right, Hunter, what do I have here? 1, 2. I wrote down 2 Big Ten matchups and 1, 2, 3, 4 SEC matchups this week. So why don't we just start it off with the 2 Big Ten games so I can swap my tabs over real quick. Over to the SEC games right after that. Big Ten right there. Perfect. At 2:30 in the afternoon, number 4, Penn State is going out to California. They're going to take on the USC out there in the Coliseum. Penn State is a 3.5-point favorite. Miller Moss and company, they've fallen on a little bit of hard times in conference play. Will USC be able to pull off a home upset?
You know, I gotta be completely honest. I wasn't around on Sunday when the AP poll dropped, and I knew Alabama was 7, and I knew Tennessee was 8, and I knew Texas was 1. I had no idea Penn State was 4. I had to like recheck that just now. I did not realize that, but just knowing that, I mean, I'm very impressed with that. But they're going against the USC team that beat LSU earlier in the year. And did they beat Michigan?
beat LSU, and they lost to Michigan.
Was it close?
Yeah, they lost 27-24 to Michigan, and they
Right.
lost 24-17 at Minnesota.
Okay, yeah.
But they beat Wisconsin 38-21.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of interesting that they've won these big games but lost some others. But I gotta go with Penn State here. I remember that there was this Penn State USC Rose Bowl from way back when, and it was an unbelievable game. I remember Sam Darnold versus Trace McSorley, and now Darnold's doing well after a few years of not doing well in the NFL, and I don't know where Trace McSorley is at the moment. But anyways, that was 10 years ago or so. Like 6. But I'm gonna go Penn State in this one. I like Miller Moss and I like what's going on at USC, but I got to go with the Nittany Lions and James Franklin.
All right, well, I will go opposite of you just because Penn State has not gone to the West Coast yet. You beat West Virginia, you beat Illinois and UCLA, but I just wonder if this road trip is going to create some problems. It'll be their first time going out west, and just think that might create a hurdle or two for James Franklin after getting off to such a strong start. Now at 6:30 is probably the game of the day. Number 2, Ohio State is taking on number 3, Oregon. Ohio State is a 3-point road favorite. It's going to be a huge matchup in Autzen Stadium. How you feeling about these two teams?
Yeah, when I first saw the college football schedule a couple months back, the two games that really stood out to me was at the time number 1 ranked Georgia versus number 5 ranked Alabama. Obviously, Alabama became number 4 after week 1, but at the beginning of the season. And then I think it was number 2 Ohio State versus number 3 Oregon, and their rankings are still the same now. And so those were my two biggest matchups I've thought of the season. And obviously, the first one clearly panned out and lived up to the hype a couple weeks ago. And I definitely think this next one can. Oregon was my national championship pick to start the season. They've kind of been they haven't really looked like national champions just yet, despite being undefeated. They've had some close games. They almost lost to Boise State. Not that Boise State is bad. Obviously, they got that running back there. Right now is probably the Heisman favorite. But Ohio State, on the other hand, I think they've been consistently doing a good job overall. This game's in Autzen Stadium, though, and that's why I got to go with the home team. I got to pick Oregon here for winning this matchup, but it's going to be a close one.
Woo, I'll go opposite you again. I'll take Ohio State. I think that they're more talented, and for all the reasons you said about Oregon starting off slow, I think that Ohio State's going to take it to them from a physicality standpoint and win the game. All right, let's flip it over to the SEC. 4 more games, and 4 interesting games in the SEC. Let me change my tab from Big Ten to the SEC. We'll do the Alabama game last, and we'll start at 2:30 in the afternoon, the very first Red River rivalry in the SEC. 2:30 on ABC. Number 1 Texas is against number 18 Oklahoma at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. The Longhorns are a 14.5-point favorite, and Quinn Ewers has been named the starter again.
Yeah,
Will the Longhorns be able to win Red River this year? Didn't they lose on the goal line last year? They lost on the goal line last year, right?
I don't remember the game too well, honestly. I'd have to
they did. I'm pretty sure.
Wow. But, I mean, that game is always awesome. I mean, I guess it's kind of a shame that Oregon, Ohio State is in the same week because that's definitely overshadowing it for the right reasons. 2 versus 3 versus 1 and 2 versus 3 or 1 versus 18. I'm going to go with 2 versus 3 every time. But obviously for people in the Texas, Oklahoma area, that's obviously different. I believe game day is in Oklahoma, or is it in Oregon?
It's in Oregon. It's in Oregon.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, still, that game is definitely a bit overshadowed by the Oregon-Ohio State game. But regardless, like I said, I feel like this game kind of lives up to the hype every year. But I think Texas is going to handle this one relatively easily, winning by at least 10, maybe 14. Quinn Ewers, I'm glad that he's going to be back. He was my preseason Heisman Trophy pick. I mean, he's been out for a couple games, so I don't know how that eligibility is going to work out and if he can make up for the time if he's still perfectly eligible for it. But I definitely got Quinn Ewers in Texas winning this one pretty handily.
All right, so it wasn't to lose the game, but at the 11:30 mark in the fourth quarter last year, Texas was stopped 4th and goal on the 2-yard line. Xavier Worthy tackled on the 1-yard line. There was further scoring in the game, but yes, Oklahoma won 34-30 last year. And I'd love to pick Oklahoma again for an upset factor, just because we've been going opposite this whole time, but I can't do it. I'm going to go with Texas because I think that they are just better. Oklahoma still injured. Deion Burks sounds like he's not going to play again for Oklahoma. I do like Michael Hawkins and his what he's brought to the table for Oklahoma, but I think Texas is just going to have a little bit too much and win probably under 10 points. The line is 14.5. I would definitely take Oklahoma plus the 14.5 for sure. All right, 6 o'clock. Florida is at Tennessee. This game probably not going to be close, but it's on my sheet because to me it's a big-time rivalry. Florida is going to Tennessee at 6 o'clock on ESPN. The Volunteers are 14.5-point favorite at home. Hunter, will Tennessee bounce back from last week's loss against Arkansas?
I don't want to say that like Tennessee and Alabama are kind of like in the same place at the moment. I mean, they both lost last week and both like on the road and both schools stormed the field, but there's a big difference between Vanderbilt and Arkansas in terms of historically like doing well in football. But obviously I think Nico and Tennessee will easily bounce back here for sure against Florida. It's a good thing that they're home, kind of like Alabama is for South Carolina. If both teams were away, I still think both would win, but I think it would definitely be a little worrisome. But since I'm giving you a little hint of my Alabama pick, but since Tennessee is home, I think they handle this pretty easily against Florida.
The Florida Gators are on a 2-game win streak, but it's against Mississippi State and UCF. Not real sure if I respect that quite yet, but I will respect you if you go into Neyland Stadium and beat the Tennessee Vols. Unfortunately, I don't think that is in the cards. Brooks Austin BA from the Georgia Bulldogs on SI putting out a nice little film study on Nico Iamaleava this past week, showing that he's struggling pushing the football down the field. We'll see if that continues, but I am taking Tennessee because I think they are far too talented, and I think they are very, very, very embarrassed, just like Alabama is, and they're going to lay it on Florida. The most intriguing matchup in the conference tomorrow, though, is not Red River rivalry. It's number 9 Ole Miss going into Death Valley to take on number 13 LSU at 6:30 on ABC. Ole Miss is a 3.5-point road favorite. Jackson Dart, Harry Parrish Jr. We'll see if Lane Train, if they can defeat the LSU Tigers. Obviously, both coaches going back and forth a little bit during the, a couple weeks ago about Coca-Cola and water and Dasani. That was a fun time. What will happen tomorrow night in Death Valley, Hunter De Siver?
Yeah, Ole Miss obviously lost to Kentucky a couple weeks back, but they rebounded against South Carolina with the easily 27-3 win. And obviously, LSU and South Carolina are two totally different teams, although that game was pretty awesome a few weeks ago. But I think I'm going to go with Ole Miss again here. What's the line?
3.5-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, I think they could probably win by like 4 or 7. I think it's going to be a close one in Death Valley. I could definitely see an upset happening, but I'm going to go with Ole Miss here and Jackson Dart.
I think
probably the game of the week, honestly. Like overall, I think that could be like the best game. Like not even like I would argue this and like Oregon versus Ohio State are the only ones that are close to being the game of the week.
I'll go opposite you and take LSU. I think they'll play well at home. I think Ole Miss will fall into some sloppy mistakes on the road, and the Tigers will pull one out. Brian Kelly will pull one out at home and further send Ole Miss's season into some turmoil, some chaos. Our last game, Alabama and South Carolina. Hunter, will you do it? Will you be brave and take South Carolina to make it 2 rough weeks for Alabama?
What's the line there?
20 points? What? 22 points? Is that what I have? Hold on one second. It is 21 points. Alabama is a 21-point favorite. The total is 50.5.
Yeah, I mean, you got people that want Alabama to win by 50, and then you got other people that think they're going to win by like 14 or so. And I definitely lean closer to the people that are going to think that they're going to win by 14, which I think they might go a little higher. I think they might win by 17 or 20 or so. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be a blowout. South Carolina's team is definitely a lot better than the stats say, with all these athletes and defensive line and running quarterback. But I still think Alabama gets this one done. Score prediction, just off the top of my head right now, I'm going to go with 42 to 21. It's a hefty amount of points.
You said 42-21?
Yeah, right now. That's what I'm thinking.
So that's 63 points. So that's hitting the over by a lot. And that is 21 points. So that's an Alabama push if you were gambling on the Crimson Tide. I'm going to take Alabama to win. I do have a confidence that Alabama will bounce back. But I don't think it's going to be as dominant as Hunter does. And I don't think it's going to be as dominant enough for the Alabama fans to let up. I'm feeling 31-17. Feeling 31-17. That's a 48-point total. And what's that? A 16-point spread, right? No, that's not bad. That's bad math. That's 15. That's 15. That's a 15-point spread, right? Yeah.
What was your score, sorry?
31-17. That's 15.
That's 14.
Right? 14.
Yeah.
Journalism right there. So no, I don't think Alabama will cover. I think that Alabama will win. Yes, it is 14. I think that Alabama will win, but I don't think that Alabama will cover. And I think it'll hit the under because I think South Carolina's defense is really, really good, and they're going to slow you down just a little bit. And I think that South Carolina's offense will try to do what Vanderbilt did in a sense of sucking the air out of the ball, trying to milk the clock, leave Jalen Milroe on the sidelines to help the defense. I'm going 31-17. And Alabama will win, but I think everybody's going to walk away at 3 o'clock thinking, oh man, this team still has a lot of work to do. Hunter, any final thoughts before we get out of here for the day?
I don't think so. I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning. Be a long day, but we'll get out of there pretty early.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be there for you right there at BamaCentral.com. Follow Hunter De Siver at Hunter De Siver on the Twitter machine. Follow us, Alabama Crimson Tide. We will be in Bryant-Denny Stadium's press box bright and early tomorrow. We'll have your Walk of Champions going up on the Bama Central YouTube channel, and we'll have all your coverage of the game and beyond right there on both the Alabama Crimson Tide on SI website and on the YouTube channel as well. You can find post-game interviews from all the players as we are scrambling around trying to talk to everybody about the win or loss. So we'll be there, and we'll be back to talk to you again on Monday to break down the game right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.